Hachim Mastour. Hachim Mastour was the world's first viral YouTube footballer. At 14, AC Milan signed him for a record fee for a minor, banking on his global internet fame. His compilation videos, featuring Red Bull-sponsored skills and juggling tricks, racked up millions of views. He was hyped as a mix of Neymar and Ronaldinho, a marketing dream who was seemingly destined to dominate the sport. Before he had even played a professional game, he was already an internet celebrity with major endorsement deals. But this digital fame masked a fundamental problem: the brutal gap between freestyle and professional football. Mastour was a juggler, not a competitor. When he finally tried to transition to senior football on loan at Malaga and PEC Zwolle, he was physically bullied and tactically lost. The illusion shattered completely with the realization that he couldn't play 11 versus 11. He lacked the stamina, positioning, and decision-making required for the pro game. He could do a rainbow flick, but he couldn't track a runner or hold possession under pressure. He played a total of roughly 10 professional games in 5 years, exposing the hype as a digital mirage. Today, at 26, and playing in the Moroccan leagues after drifting through the Italian third tier, Hachim Mastour proves that being an Instagram influencer is a completely different job from being a professional athlete. Hatem Ben Arfa. Hatem Ben Arfa was arguably the most naturally gifted French player of his generation, technically superior even to Karim Benzema. A product of the famous Lyon Academy, he possessed a dribbling ability that rivaled Lionel Messi. His solo goal for Newcastle United against Bolton, where he beat 5 players from his own half, remains one of the greatest individual goals in Premier League history. He was a genius who could win a match on his own, with managers and teammates frequently admitting he was the most talented player they had ever seen. But the architect of his own downfall was a toxic ego and insubordination. Ben Arfa was unmanageable, clashing with almost every coach he worked with, from Didier Deschamps to Unai Emery. The bridge was burned completely during his dream move to PSG, where his attitude led to him being frozen out of the squad for over a year. He famously celebrated his exclusion by eating pizza in the dressing room and openly mocking the club's hierarchy. He wasted his physical prime in the stands because he refused to press or follow tactical instructions, believing his talent exempted him from the rules. Having retired at 37, Ben Arfa remains the definition of wasted genius. He treated professional football like a pickup game in the park, dazzling the world when he felt like it, but refusing to work when he didn't. Alexandre Pato. Alexandre Pato arrived at AC Milan at just 17, costing €24 million, a world record for a player his age. He was immediately anointed the new Ronaldo, the saviour of Brazilian football. The hype was suffocating, yet justified. His acceleration defied physics, and his finishing was surgical. In 2009, he claimed the prestigious Golden Boy Award. His 24-second solo goal against Barcelona at the Camp Nou remains the perfect snapshot of his potential. Unstoppable, electric, and terrifyingly fast. He wasn't running. He was gliding past world-class defenders as if they were statues. However, his career was dismantled by a purely physical curse: structural fragility. Pato's explosive growth, spurts, and speed were too much for his muscles to handle. In just 2 years, he suffered a staggering 14 muscular injuries, primarily to his hamstrings. The heartbreaking turning point was the realization that he could no longer sprint without fear. The famed Milan lab couldn't fix him. The psychological toll was devastating. The boy who played on instinct became petrified of his own body. By 2013, Milan surrendered, selling the broken prodigy back to Brazil, his European dominance over before it truly peaked. Today, at 35 and largely inactive after brief stints in MLS and Brazil, Pato remains a tragic figure. He was a Formula One car driven into the ground before it could finish the first lap. Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati exploded onto the scene at Barcelona as a 16-year-old miracle, breaking records as the youngest goalscorer in the club's history, and for the Spanish national team, he was universally anointed as Lionel Messi's successor. The hype was not just media noise. The club officially handed him the sacred number 10 shirt after Messi's departure, a gesture that signalled he was the chosen one. His finishing was instinctive, his dribbling electric, and he played with a maturity that convinced the world a new dynasty had begun. But this fairy tale was shattered by devastating physical trauma. A torn meniscus against Real Betis in 2020 turned into a medical nightmare requiring 4 separate surgeries. The tragedy was cemented upon his comeback. The player who returned had lost his explosive acceleration, his defining weapon. The fear of relapse was visible in his movement. He went from being the first name on the team sheet to a fragile substitute, unable to trust his own knee. The internal cost was immense. The boy expected to carry Barcelona was suddenly fighting just to stay fit, eventually being shipped out on loans to Brighton and Sevilla as the club moved on without him. Fighting a battle against his own biology at 23, Ansu Fati serves as a cruel reminder that placing the weight of a legendary franchise on a teenager's body can break them before they ever truly stand tall. Fábio Paim is the ultimate myth of football. At the Sporting CP Academy, he was considered superior to Cristiano Ronaldo. The hype is immortalised by Ronaldo's own words upon joining Manchester United. "If you think I'm good, just wait until you see Fábio Paim." By age 13, he was earning a salary higher than most first-team professionals in Portugal. He was a winger with impossible trickery and speed, widely expected to become the best player in the world. However, his inevitable failure was driven by a total lack of hunger and lifestyle excess. Paim was rich before he was a professional. He later admitted to spending his money on fast cars and partying, believing his talent alone was enough. The illusion of success finally broke during a bizarre loan to Chelsea, arranged by Jorge Mendes, where he never played a senior game. He didn't train hard because he didn't feel he needed to. While Ronaldo obsessively perfected his body, Paim rested on his reputation. His career spiraled into obscurity in lower leagues in Angola, Qatar, and Luxembourg, eventually leading to a stint in prison for drug trafficking suspicion. Today, at 36, and working as a media personality, Fábio Paim is a cautionary tale of wasted privilege. He watched Ronaldo win 5 Ballon d'Ors from a prison cell, proving that talent without obsession is worthless. Adnan Januzaj. In the dark days of David Moyes' reign at Manchester United, Adnan Januzaj was the only light. At 18, he scored a stunning brace against Sunderland on his full debut, saving the manager's job and instantly becoming an Old Trafford hero. He was handed Ryan Giggs' legendary number 11 shirt, with pundits declaring him the boy who can do anything. His balance and technical arrogance drew comparisons to a young Cristiano Ronaldo, and for 6 months, he looked like the future of the Premier League. But that light was quickly extinguished by a combination of attitude and complacency. Januzaj believed his own hype before he had earned it. When Louis van Gaal arrived demanding tactical discipline, Januzaj withered. The defining moment of his decline came during a failed loan to Borussia Dortmund, where manager Thomas Tuchel publicly questioned his desire, stating, "It is not surely the right motivation." He played like a superstar in training, but a ghost in matches, unwilling to do the dirty work required to survive at the top. He drifted from Real Sociedad to Sevilla, constantly chasing the high of his debut season, but never replicating the effort. Defining the term one-season wonder, the 29-year-old is now playing for Las Palmas. He had the talent to be a United legend, but lacked the hunger to be anything more than a fleeting highlight. Ravel Morrison is widely considered the greatest talent ever produced by Manchester United's academy during the modern era, rated even higher than Paul Pogba. At 14, Sir Alex Ferguson called Rio Ferdinand over to watch him, declaring, "This is the best kid you will ever see." He possessed a natural, effortless control of the ball that seasoned professionals couldn't replicate. On the training pitch, he humiliated first-team legends, prompting Ferdinand to admit later that he would have paid to watch him train. He wasn't just a prospect. He was a genius expected to anchor United's midfield for a generation. Sadly, this immense potential was suffocated by a chaotic external environment and severe behavioural issues. Morrison's life off the pitch was consumed by legal troubles and the wrong crowd, which bled into his professional discipline. The heartbreaking turning point came with Ferguson's reluctant decision to sell him to West Ham, famously writing a letter stating Morrison was the saddest case he had ever dealt with. Despite flashes of brilliance in London and at Lazio, he could never adhere to the structure of elite sport. He bounced from Mexico to Sweden to the USA, his undeniable talent constantly undermined by an inability to settle or follow rules. Today, at 31 and playing in the UAE Second Division, Ravel Morrison is the ultimate what if. He had the talent to win the Ballon d'Or, but finished his career as a nomad who couldn't outrun his own background. Marko Marin. Marko Marin emerged at Werder Bremen as the original German Messi. His low centre of gravity, rapid dribbling, and creative vision made him a standout in the Bundesliga. In 2012, Chelsea paid €8 million to bring the 23-year-old to London, viewing him as the creative spark to partner with Eden Hazard and Juan Mata. The hype was significant. He was a German international with a technical skill set to dismantle tight defences, expected to be a key figure in Chelsea's new era of attacking football. However, his trajectory was derailed by physical fragility and instability. His Chelsea career effectively ended before it began due to a severe hamstring injury in pre-season. When he returned, the sheer physicality of the Premier League bullied him out of games. He soon passed the point of no return by entering Chelsea's infamous loan army. He never found rhythm, shipped out to Sevilla, Fiorentina, Anderlecht, and Trabzonspor in rapid succession. In every league, the pattern repeated: a few flashes of brilliance, followed by injuries or an inability to sustain intensity over 90 minutes. He became a forgotten man, a piece of inventory moving across Europe without a home. Having retired in the Hungarian league and now working as a technical director at 35, Marko Marin's career is a case study in lost momentum. He had the feet of a superstar, but the durability of glass. Mario Balotelli. Mario Balotelli burst onto the scene at Inter Milan as a 17-year-old force of nature. He possessed the physique of a heavyweight boxer and the touch of a ballerina. By 2010, he had won the Golden Boy Award and the Champions League, moving to Manchester City, where he became a global icon. His performance against Germany in the Euro 2012 semi-final, where he scored a thunderous brace and stood shirtless, flexing in defiance, cemented the belief that he was the best young striker on the planet. He wasn't just a player, he was Super Mario, a talent so raw that Roberto Mancini claimed he could become as good as Messi or Ronaldo. Yet his career was constantly sabotaged by a chaotic lack of discipline and mental maturity. Balotelli was his own worst enemy. His time in the spotlight became a circus of off-field antics, setting off fireworks in his bathroom, throwing darts at youth players, rather than on field production. The patience of his mentors finally snapped during a training ground fistfight with Roberto Mancini, the one manager who truly loved him. Jose Mourinho had famously labelled him unmanageable, and eventually clubs stopped looking at his talent and only saw the baggage. He drifted from Liverpool to Nice to Brescia, with his work rate never matching his God-given ability. Today, at 34 and playing for Genoa after spells in Turkey and Switzerland, Balotelli remains football's greatest frustration. He had the keys to the kingdom, but was too busy playing pranks to unlock the door. Jesé Rodríguez. Jesé Rodríguez was the crown jewel of Real Madrid's La Fábrica. He broke Emilio Butragueño's scoring record for the B team and broke into the senior squad with terrifying confidence. He was explicitly groomed to be the successor to Cristiano Ronaldo, sharing the same explosive pace, power, and direct dribbling style. In the 2013-14 season, he was arguably the most exciting young winger in Spain, scoring against Barcelona and seemingly destined to rule the Bernabeu for a decade. Carlo Ancelotti described him as a talent of crazy quality, but his potential was shattered by a devastating combination of injury and distraction. The catastrophic event occurred in a Champions League match against Schalke, where a tackle tore his ACL, destroying his defining speed. Crucially, the point of no return wasn't just the tackle, but his recovery. Instead of fighting back, he pivoted to a music career under the name GM and indulged in a celebrity lifestyle. His move to PSG was a disaster. He arrived overweight and disinterested. He became a tabloid fixture rather than a footballer, bouncing between loans where he looked heavy and slow, completely unrecognisable from the electric winger who once terrorised La Liga defences. Playing in Malaysia for Johor Darul Ta'zim at 31, Jesé is a cautionary tale. The injury broke his knee, but the music and lack of hunger broke his career. Emre Mor exploded onto the scene as the Turkish Messi, following a breakout run in Denmark and a dazzling display at Euro 2016. Borussia Dortmund signed the 18-year-old for nearly €10 million. He possessed a low centre of gravity and an explosive dribbling ability that made him nearly impossible to tackle. The hype was electric. He was viewed as the most naturally gifted winger in Europe, with the potential to become a global superstar under the guidance of Thomas Tuchel. But beneath the flashy skills lay a toxic ego and a severe lack of football intelligence. Mor played for himself, not the team. His time at Dortmund imploded due to constant clashes with Tuchel and teammates over his refusal to pass the ball. His career effectively went off the rails after a move to Celta Vigo, where he was kicked out of training multiple times for lateness and insubordination. He believed he was bigger than the tactical system, treating matches like exhibition games. Coaches publicly criticised his unmanageable attitude, and his career became a series of disciplinary suspensions rather than goal contributions, a testament to the fact that dribbling ability is useless if you refuse to listen to your manager. The 27-year-old is now playing for Eyüpspor in Turkey after failing at every major European stop. Kurlon exploded onto the scene at Cruzeiro and was the MVP and top scorer of the 2005 South American U17 Championship, outshining future stars like Marcelo and Willian. His signature move, the seal dribble, balancing the ball on his forehead while sprinting past defenders, was globally viral before social media truly existed. Inter Milan signed the 20-year-old in 2008, believing they had secured the most unique dribbler in world football. He was seen as a joyous innovator, bringing a street football trick to the professional stage. Tragically, his career was cut short by a brutal mix of physical violence and knee injuries. Defenders did not respect the seal dribble. They attacked it. The defining image of his career is not a goal, but Atletico Mineiro defender Diego Coelho violently elbowing him in the face to stop the move. This physical punishment, combined with a genetic predisposition to injury, led to a staggering 6 ACL tears. His body reached a point of no return during his time in Italy. He never played a single minute for Inter Milan's first team, spending his prime years on the operating table rather than the pitch. Forced to retire at just 29 after failed stints in Japan, Malta and Slovakia, Kurlon is a nostalgic tragedy. He proved that while you can invent a new way to play football, you cannot invent a body that can survive the punishment for it. Gaël Kakuta wasn't just signed by Chelsea, he was stolen. In 2007, Chelsea risked a transfer ban and a massive FIFA fine to poach the 16-year-old from Lens, convinced he was a generational talent worth the legal war. He was the Black Sedan, a left-footed playmaker with supreme vision and flair. After dominating the reserves and being named Academy Player of the Year, Carlo Ancelotti finally unleashed him, and his early cameos were electric, showcasing a technical ceiling that made the legal trouble seem entirely justified. Sadly, the weight of the controversy stifled his progress. Kakuta became a pawn in a legal battle rather than a developing footballer. His potential was eventually squandered by the club's loan army cycle. Instead of being protected and developed, he was shipped out to Fulham, Bolton, Dijon, Vitesse, Lazio, and Rayo Vallecano. He lost his identity, forced to adapt to 6 different managers in 4 years. He was a luxury player in teams fighting relegation, a terrible mismatch that eroded his confidence. By the time he found stability, his window as an elite prospect had shut. Now plying his trade in Iran for Esteghlal at 33, Kakuta forged a decent career as a journeyman, but he never justified the war fought over him. He remains the poster child for Chelsea's ruthlessness, a diamond that was mined at great cost and then left to gather dust. Youssoufa Moukoko. Youssoufa Moukoko was a statistical anomaly. In the Borussia Dortmund academy, he didn't just score, he obliterated records, netting 141 goals in 88 games. He was so dominant against older teenagers that the Bundesliga famously changed its age eligibility rules just to allow him to debut at 16. He became the youngest player and goalscorer in league history, dubbed the next Samuel Eto'o. The hype was astronomical. Nike signed him to a €10 million deal before he was legally an adult, banking on him being the striker who would define the next decade of German football. But his ascent hit a wall built of physical limitations and external controversy. Moukoko dominated youth football, largely due to early physical maturity. When he reached the senior level, that advantage evaporated against grown men. His momentum was further derailed by a cloud of age fraud allegations that surfaced in 2023, casting a shadow over his legacy and creating a media circus. Simultaneously, injuries halted his progress. He went from being the inevitable heir to Erling Haaland to a bench option, struggling to replicate his youth dominance in a tactical system that required more than just raw finishing instinct. Currently finding his feet on loan at OGC Nice, at just 20, Moukoko is at a critical crossroads. He is learning the hard way that being a giant among children does not guarantee you will be a giant among men. Freddy Adu. At 14, Freddy Adu was less a footballer and more a corporate experiment. Signed by DC United as the youngest athlete in American pro sports history, he was anointed the next Pelé. The hype was manufactured by a $1 million Nike contract and a media machine desperate for a soccer saviour in the US. He appeared in commercials with Pelé himself, who claimed God gave Freddy the talent to do everything. He was sold to the public as a finished product before he had even gone through puberty, carrying the weight of an entire nation's expectations. Ultimately, he was a victim of premature marketing acceleration. Adu was bypassed through critical developmental stages. When he finally moved to Europe to join Benfica, the technical and tactical gaps in his game were exposed. The crushing reality set in with the realization that he was a marketing asset, not an elite player. He couldn't compete physically or mentally at the top level. He spiraled into a humiliating journeyman career, playing for 14 clubs in 8 countries, including stints in the Finnish second division, treated everywhere as a travelling circus act, rather than a serious reinforcement. Having left the professional game behind at 35, Freddy Adu remains the industry's darkest cautionary tale. He proves that you cannot shortcut development. Fame is a byproduct of success, not a substitute for it. Ibrahim Afellay. Ibrahim Afellay was the Dutch Iniesta. As the captain of PSV Eindhoven, he dominated the Eredivisie with a blend of silky dribbling, explosive pace, and tactical intelligence. In 2011, Barcelona signed the 24-year-old to bolster arguably the greatest club's side in history. It was the perfect marriage. Affellay's technical style fit Guardiola's tiki-taka like a glove. He even provided the critical assist for Messi in the Champions League semi-final against Real Madrid. He wasn't a bench warmer. He was a legitimate starter for the Dutch national team and a key weapon for the best team on earth. Cruelly, his ascent was cut short by a catastrophic anterior cruciate ligament injury. Just as he was establishing himself at Camp Nou, his knee snapped during training. The dream effectively ended in the medical room. The grueling surgery and recovery cost him the half step of electric pace that allowed him to glide past defenders. When he returned, the Barcelona machine had moved on. He was shipped out to Schalke, Olympiacos, and eventually Stoke City, where the physical battering of the Premier League further destroyed his fragile body. He spent more time in rehab than on the grass, a technician robbed of his tools. Having retired quietly at 34, Ibrahim Afellay is a tragedy of timing and biology. He was a Stradivarius violin that was smashed just as the concert was beginning. Gedion Zelalem. In the summer of 2013, Gedion Zelalem became an overnight sensation at Arsenal. During a pre-season tour of Asia, the 16-year-old played passes that seasoned veterans couldn't see, splitting defences with a nonchalant elegance. Arsène Wenger, usually cautious with praise, publicly likened his vision to Cesc Fabregas, and fans were convinced they had found their next midfield architect. He wasn't just a youth player, he was a viral highlight reel of through balls, possessing a unique, languid style that suggested he saw the game in slow motion compared to everyone else. But while his mind was elite, his body was incompatible with the top level. Zelalem was technically gifted, but physically fragile, never filling out his frame to cope with the intensity of senior football. His trajectory hit a definitive wall during a difficult loan to Rangers in Scotland, where the brute physicality of the league exposed his lightweight nature. A subsequent ACL tear in 2017 robbed him of crucial developmental years. He couldn't protect the ball or win duels, and his magical passing became irrelevant because he couldn't physically survive in midfield long enough to use it. Plying his trade for FC Den Bosch in the Dutch second tier at 27, after failing to crack the MLS, Zelalem is a symbol of technical purity lost to the modern athletic game. He had the vision of a Champions League winner, but the physique of a permanent youth player. Alen Halilović. Alen Halilović was the chosen one of Croatian football, breaking records as the youngest debutant and goal scorer for Dinamo Zagreb. He was universally dubbed the Balkan Messi. In 2014, Barcelona signed the 17-year-old, viewing him as the heir to their midfield dynasty. He possessed the same low centre of gravity, long hair, and lethal left foot as the Argentine legend. The hype was absolute. He was expected to seamlessly transition from Barcelona B to partnering Iniesta and Messi at the Camp Nou. However, his career stalled due to a fundamental tactical and mental mismatch. Halilović wanted to play as a free roaming number 10, a position that was dying in modern football. The dream unravelled completely upon his move to Hamburger SV, where his refusal to track back or press infuriated coaches. He was branded a luxury player who couldn't handle the defensive dirty work. A bizarre transfer to AC Milan followed, where he played 0 league minutes, exposing that his agent was better at finding clubs than he was at playing for them. He bounced between 7 countries, constantly failing to adapt his game to the team's needs. Finally finding some stability at Fortuna Sittard in the Netherlands at 28, Halilović serves as a reality check. Being the next Messi requires not just the dribbling, but the relentless work ethic that Halilović never developed until it was too late. Gai Assulin. Gai Assulin was the jewel of Barcelona's La Masia, the only player who could legitimately claim the label, the Israeli Messi. He broke records as the youngest player to represent the Israel national team at 16, beating Ben Sahar's record. Pep Guardiola, then Barcelona B coach, adored him, and he was promoted alongside Sergio Busquets and Pedro. With a buyout clause of €20 million as a teenager, the expectation was absolute. He was the heir apparent to the wing, possessing the same low centre of gravity and dribbling style as the Argentine legend. But his career unravelled due to a strategic miscalculation and a brutal level mismatch. Impatient for first-team minutes at Barca, he chased the riches of Manchester City in 2010. The dream turned into a nightmare with the realisation that he was a small fish in a shark tank. Physically lightweight and tactically naive, he never made a league appearance for City. He wasn't good enough for the Premier League's physicality, and his confidence shattered. He began a steep descent, bouncing between second-tier Spanish clubs and leagues in Kazakhstan and Romania, chasing the ghost of his Barcelona potential. Currently 33 and competing in the Italian fourth tier, Serie D, Gai Assulin is the ultimate warning against leaving a nurturing environment too soon. He traded the best education in the world for a lottery ticket he never cashed.